All right, Nora. So we're kicking off Hollywood's Golden Age unscripted stories. And I gotta say, the topic for our first episode, the studio system, how it started, it just screams like essential knowledge. How did this colossal machine even come into being?
Oh, Mark, it's such a wild ride, honestly. It actually starts with, believe it or not, Thomas Edison. I mean, the guy, he held nearly all the patents for film technology, right? So he formed this thing called the Motion Picture Patents Company, or the MPPC, back in like 1908. And they were just this super powerful trust, basically trying to control everything: production, distribution, exhibition. You wanted to make a movie, you had to like go through them, pay their fees, use their equipment. It was a total monopoly. Do you know what I mean?
So, like a gatekeeper from day one. I can only imagine how that went over with, these ambitious, creative types trying to break into a brand new art form.
Exactly. It didn't go over well at all. I mean, they were just really stifling innovation. And if you didn't play by Edison's rules, they'd send like actual thugs, to smash your cameras, disrupt your shoots. It was pretty intense. So what did the independent filmmakers do? They fled. They looked for places where Edison's reach wasn't as strong and where there was abundant sunshine. And guess where they ended up?
Let me guess. Sunny California, far away from, the New York-based trust.
Bingo! Absolutely. They headed west, specifically to Los Angeles. And this move, it was just foundational for everything that came next. Because it's there, far from the MPPC's watchful eye, that these independents really started to thrive. You had guys like Adolph Zukor, who would go on to found Paramount, and Carl Laemmle, who started Universal. These weren't like small-time operators. They were entrepreneurs, and they saw the immense potential in film, beyond Edison's restrictive vision.
So they're building these new companies almost in defiance. But how did they go from like just making movies in California to actually, establishing a system?
That's the really brilliant part. Or, depending on how you look at it, the really ruthless part. They realized that just producing films wasn't enough. They needed control. So they started doing something called vertical integration. Do you know about that?
I mean, I've heard the term, but in this context, like, what exactly did that mean for Hollywood?
It meant everything, Mark. It meant owning all three parts of the industry. First, production, making the movies. Second, distribution, getting those movies out to theaters. And third, and this was the game changer, exhibition, owning the actual movie theaters where people watch the films. So a studio like Paramount wasn't just making movies, they were delivering them to their own theaters, ensuring they had an audience and total control over the revenue stream. It was a closed loop, super efficient, and like incredibly profitable for them. Yeah, so that vertical integration, it just really, really locked things down. Instead of like hoping someone would buy your film and then show it, you had your own network. This also meant studios could guarantee a consistent flow of movies to their theaters, which, kept the audiences coming back. It was a massive advantage over smaller independent producers who couldn't afford to own like hundreds of theaters across the country. And this is where you start seeing the really big names emerge. Warner Bros., MGM, 20th Century Fox, they all adopted this model, and it exploded.
Wow. So it was almost like a self-sustaining ecosystem they built for themselves. They weren't just filmmakers, they were like real estate moguls too, with all those theaters.
Absolutely. And it gave them immense power over what got made, what got seen, and even how stories were told. Because they controlled the whole pipeline, they could invest huge amounts of money in elaborate productions, knowing they had a guaranteed outlet for them. It's pretty mind-boggling when you think about it. And it wasn't just the physical infrastructure, like the theaters that they controlled. They started exerting control over the people, too.
You're talking about the stars, right? The actors and actresses who became, household names. I can imagine that was a whole other layer of control.
Oh, absolutely. The star system, It was totally born out of this. Studios realized that audiences loved certain actors, right? So they started signing them to these really, really long-term contracts, sometimes for 7 years or even longer. These weren't like normal employment contracts. They were often super restrictive. Studios owned the stars' images, their names, even their personal lives to an extent.
Wait, they owned their personal lives? Like, what does that even mean?
Well, they'd have morality clauses in the contracts, Mark. And if a star got into any kind of scandal, the studio could suspend them, fine them, or even terminate the contract. They literally dictated what roles a star would play, how they dressed, who they publicly dated. It was a complete image management system. Think about someone like Joan Crawford or Clark Gable. Their entire persona was carefully crafted and maintained by their respective studios. It wasn't just acting, it was like a full-time brand deal before brand deals even existed.
That's just wild to think about today. Like artists having so little agency over their own careers, let alone their lives. But I guess it worked, right? Because people flocked to see these stars.
It absolutely worked. And the studios, they became these massive, massive dream factories, churning out hundreds of films a year, almost on an assembly line, each with their own stable of stars, directors, writers, and technical crews. Every studio had its own distinct look and feel, too. You could tell like an MGM musical from a Warner Bros. Gangster flick just by its aesthetic.
So we're talking about these huge, powerful studios. Can you name some of the really big players that defined this golden age studio system?
Oh, totally. There were the big five, as they were called, that just dominated. Paramount Pictures, Lowe/MGM, Warner Bros., 20th Century Fox, and RKO Radio Pictures. These guys, they owned the majority of the first-run theaters in major cities, ensuring their films got prime real estate, you know? And then there were also the Little Three, Universal Pictures, Columbia Pictures, and United Artists, who were significant but didn't own as many theaters, so they had to negotiate more.
So the big five, they just had a massive, massive advantage. It was almost impossible to compete, I'd imagine.
Practically impossible for newcomers, yeah. Each of them developed their own distinct identity. MGM, for example, was known for its lavish musicals and really glamorous stars. You know, more stars than there are in heaven. Warner Bros. Was famous for its gritty gangster films and social dramas. Paramount was known for its sophisticated comedies and elegant productions. They all had their niche, their brand identity, and they stuck to it. This allowed them to really cater to different audience segments while maintaining this overall control.
It sounds like a really calculated and brilliantly executed business model that shaped not just how movies were made, but consumed for decades.